Good Wednesday to you, everybody in Gov 603. Welcome to week, boom, 5. How's everybody doing? Quarter mark in the semester, okay? Quarter mark and a week. We're heading towards mid-semester. How you doing? You holding up? All right? The other classes, work, other responsibilities treating you well? I certainly hope so. Okay, so before we get started this week, and I am already, I will tell you, sufficiently caffeinated. Up unusually early this morning, so I've already had, I don't know, 2 or 3 cups of coffee, but a little tickle in my throat. It's kind of a seasonal allergy thing. I'm fine, so I could use a little bit of water. So let me just get a little water here from one of my favorite hiking. Let's call this a type of water bottle called a Nalgene. I've taken this thing really, literally all over the planet. Hold on one second. Much, much better. Now I am sufficiently caffeinated and sufficiently hydrated. And you haul these things around and schwap stickers on them from places that you've been and things that you've done. This particular Nalgene contains perhaps my all-time favorite central backpacking. I think that could be a life motto. Okay, and here it is, right there. All right. Learn it, love it, live it. Okay, enough about me. Let's get to you. All right, so for this week, a couple of reminders. Remember that your research design part 1 is due on February 24th. And remember, too, no draft work. Okay, I can't give you meaningful feedback when you hand me a draft. I can't evaluate your research methodology, your writing, your composition when it's draft. It's not that I don't like drafts. It's not that I don't think drafts are useful. I make a lot of drafts. I use, in addition to scribbling all over everything, including napkins, I use one of these tablets. I think this is called the Writable 2. And, you scribble away on this. And whoops, that's kind of a messy page, isn't it? And then one of the things I like about this is I can write with this stylus on here, and then it converts it into text, and I can send it to my desk, because I spend a lot of time at my desk, and any way I can get out from behind my desk makes me a happy guy. So which reminds me, when you upload part 1 of your papers, please make sure that they're in PDF. Some of your papers I'll grade in the Blackboard module. Some of them I'm going to grade using this because, again, I don't have to be at my desk all the time. And it only works with PDF. Okay. So also remember, midterm exam, March 1st, over in the assignment folder, there's a review sheet that tells you how it's going to go. There's some items on there that will sort of clue you in as to what we're going to be looking at. It's not an exhaustive list, excuse me, meaning there'll be more than what's listed on the list, but that at least, puts you in sort of the right frame of mind as to what we're going to be pulling from, and kinds of questions and some sample questions and that stuff. Okay. Sorry. A little curiously strong Altoids mint. Okay. So coming up, in the middle of now, week 5, we're turning our attention to methodology. Before we were defining some basic terms, and we're going to continue to expand our understanding. We're even going to do some, run through some research methods. We'll do a regression analysis, not this week, but in coming weeks. Okay. But what we're looking at here in week 5 is, how is it that you evaluate data? And then what do you do with it once you're finished? All right. And the center of the target, the main prize, the thing that researchers are looking for when they run through data is external validity. That is, it does happen that if you do research, and in political science this happens, you're concerned with the information just about the group that you look at. This happens a lot when candidates are trying to evaluate the voting patterns of people in certain counties, all right, because they could be different. Their core interests can be different. You're talking about like statewide elections, all right? But very frequently, the underlying question to any research is, you've got a research group over here, let's say 1,000 people. Can the findings from those 1,000 people be applied to the general population? That's external validity. So we're gonna take a look at that, what it means, why it's important, these sorts of things. So that's a little. If you haven't already dug into the readings for week 5, that's a bit of a preview. Okay, let's take a look at the questions from the readings from week 4 and see what some of you said. See if we can add anything useful to it. Question number 1. Summarize Pownner's section on what a literature review is not. Okay. Of the many mistakes Pownner covers in this section, which one have you made in past research papers? Alrighty. I want to emphasize that you really need to digest and internalize this section of the book. This, in areas in which research stumbles, literature review and then probably methodology, sometimes they compete for the top slot, is it. And if you don't cover what's been said about something that you're going to say, oh, hey, I'm going to research this, and cover it in the right way, that makes your results extremely vulnerable to criticism and negation. I'm just going to ignore what this person has said, and then you put in all that work for what? Okay. All right, Tyler, you went first. Let's take you first. In empirical research and writing, Pownner states that, quote, a literature review is not an article-by-article summary of the pieces you read with one paragraph per article or item. Correct. And that is, though, an annotated bibliography, which can be useful because it summarizes the sources that you've read through. Mostly useful for you because, it helps you make decisions about which one of these sources you want to use when you're composing your final paper. Not so useful to the reader. The literature review is also not an historical background to your topic or case. Your literature review should not contain every single piece you read. It's not directly relevant. If it's not directly relevant to your theory or data. Excellent. Okay, and then confession time. Tyler writes, to some extent, I'm guilty of all of these. We knew it, Tyler. Of all of these in the research papers I have written. However, the one I'm most likely to commit still is the article-by-article summary. Yes, Tyler, we understand. Now, this is a common mistake, okay? And the reason that I put that in there and I want you to read it and I want you to discuss it is I don't want you to make the mistake. Don't do that. That's not what a literature review is. And by the way, if you have any questions about, what is a literature review? I haven't done this before. Email me. Okay, we're here for each other. All right, question number 2. Why, according to Runyon, or Jan, if you like, Runyon, should we be cautious of single causation explanation when it comes to an individual and his or her behavior? Now, in political science, this problematic behavior is rampant. People do this all the time, okay? They'll construct entire policies around singular observations or singular explanation for behavior. So if you're going forward in the poli-sci field, especially in research, this is one that you've got to watch out for. Okay, so why is this a problem? Andrew, according to Runyon, the interpretation of a single causal explanation of individual's behavior is little more than an arbitrary application of one's theoretical preferences. In other words, a causal explanation can be anyone's interpretation based on their perceptions without consideration of other possible explanations and critical examination of related evidence. Very well put, okay? Maybe to put it another way, first of all, people are complicated in their behaviors. And, the term that we use in research is multifactorial. There are many things that cause behaviors to happen. I mean, that's true for a lot of things. The weather is multifactorial. There are many elements that go into, will it rain or not today? All right. And people are complicated. Many times they may not be aware of their own motivations. Many times those those factors aren't expressed externally. They're going on in the mind. Okay, so it's hard to figure out an explanation. And the case they use is rather extreme one. Why did Van Gogh whack off his ear? Send it to the prostitute, but it makes the point. And I want to encourage you, especially if you go on in politics. And here's something. What's the right word? It's a mistake, but this seems to be particularly prevalent in our day and age. Someone can have a personal experience, okay, and that's what happened to them is valid, whether it was pleasant or unpleasant. But personal experience is not evidence, and this is what the author is getting at: is that typically when and this is the sniff test for you as statisticians and poli scientists and data analysts. If there's a single causal explanation, causal meaning this caused that, okay, you should start looking for some of the biases expressed or not of the researcher. Because typically when somebody says, yeah, it's this and just this is more an expression of their personal bias. And we all have bias, all right? Politicians and media, these two big areas are constantly trying to push our confirmation bias buttons to get our vote, to get our money, to get our eyeballs. That's how the game works. I'm not being cynical. I'm just telling you how it happens. All right. So when you see a single causal explanation, start looking at the source, who's saying that this is what it is, and look at their bias, because it's usually an expression of the bias. But people can have personal experience, whether it happened to them or something that they viewed. That's fine. But when it comes to policy, please, I'm imploring you, as the future political scientists and lawyers and all sorts of things in the world, seek out evidence. All right. Yes, you can listen. We can listen to one another. We can empathize about personal experience, that this was uncomfortable for the person. Okay. But personal experience is no substitute for evidence, especially when it comes to developing and implementing policy. Okay. So be very, very careful of that as a researcher. All right. Question number 3. On January 26, 2001, it is alleged that more than 2,000 people entered the United States Capitol building in Washington, D.C. The rioters, it is alleged, entered the Capitol building after a speech given by President Donald Trump, in which it was alleged that he used 22 grammatical variations of the word fight. In March of 2022, Joshua James, 34, of Areb, Alabama. I mean, that's how I say it, but I spent a lot of time in the Middle East. Arab, maybe they say in Alabama. I don't know. If there's anybody from Alabama, correct me in my pronunciation. A member of the organization called the Oath Keepers pled guilty to seditious conspiracy for his part in the riots. If you were to write a research proposal for the January 6 riots, would you utilize a case-oriented or a population-oriented research methodology, and explain why? Okay, so first things first. I said alleged, not because I'm not saying, nobody entered the Capitol and stuff, but because this is how our system works. If you're, entering a government facility illegally, after hours illegally, is a very serious issue. It doesn't matter if you're busting into the post office. So whenever someone is accused of a crime, until they're convicted of a crime, we say alleged. That's how the system works. So that's why I use that terminology, okay? This isn't politics. This is due process. All right. And I set this up because it presupposes that you come to understand what case-oriented and populated-oriented research methodology is. And these are two very common methodologies used in political science research. So I wanted you to familiarize yourself with them, okay? Judah, let's see what you said. Storming the United States Capitol building on January 6, 2021 was one of the most extraordinary events in U.S. political history. Now, again, see, right back to the last one. I can empathize with him. I can listen to his perspective. An evidentiary examination of events in U.S. political history, this may not be most extraordinary, but we digress. And the one question on everybody's mind, why? Why did over 2,000 people force their way into the U.S. Capitol? Okay. For the empirical researcher, this is a question of causality. According to Mahoney, researchers investigate causality in 2 different ways. The first is case-oriented. Case-oriented research seeks to explain, here we go, now we get to the meat of it. seeks to explain particular outcomes in specific cases. As the name suggests, case-oriented. So if you happen to see that term again, like, well, I don't know, on a midterm exam, a wink, make sure that you not only can define it, but you understand what it means. Okay? Mahoney observes that while cases are usually thought of as items of probability, it is preferable to view causality as the case level, at the case level, through the philosophy of logic. He then articulates 5 kinds of cases that are applicable to case-oriented research, which we don't need now. Okay. Population-oriented research, on the other hand, population-oriented researchers, on the other hand, do not have as their primary goal the explanation of any particular case. Correct. So they're not looking at like this instance. They're looking at the broad sweep of an event. So it'd be the difference between, say, why did Robespierre have Danton's head chopped off during the French Revolution, as opposed to why were they chopping off heads in the French Revolution? All right. One is a much broader sweep. The other one is very narrow. Instead, they wanted to accurately estimate the effects of variables within the whole population. Okay. Excellent. Very well said. And then in terms of your research, you say, however, if I were designing the research, I would choose the population-oriented approach. This methodology would include taking a survey of a large number of the January 6th protesters to learn which factors influence their actions. And then back to, it was alleged that the president used all these variations of fight. You should break in, you should fight, et cetera, et cetera. A statistically significant number of the respondents indicated that President Trump use of the term fight motivated them to enter the Capitol. It's reasonable to consider that this was the cause of the event. Okay? Excellent. Very, very well answered. Thank you. All right. Finally, question number 4. According to Huntington Klein, why would a researcher be concerned about the causal relationship between 2 or more variables? Timothy, the word variable or variable means able to vary or change, or something can be changed. Okay, the thing may be a quantity that can have different values. Alternatively, it may be a factor in an experiment that someone changes, a factor that a person changes is an independent variable. The thing that may be changed is the dependent variable. Nevertheless, the dependent variable may be affected by other things too, so scientists try to keep those external factors or controlled variables constant. Okay, they will not impact the experiment's outcome. Okay, all of that's true, Timothy, but remember this for the exam, because you will have short answers. Try to write as immediately and directly to the question as you can. Okay? That is true. Why would a researcher be concerned with the relationships? Okay? Andrew, let's see what you had to say. According to Huntington Klein, a researcher should primarily be concerned about the causal relationship between 2 or more variables, so they can accurately describe and relay observed information about the causal relationship and determine how this information can be used in addressing the research question. Huntington Klein say researchers should be concerned about causality because many research questions we are interested in are causal in nature. Okay. Now, I'm going to assume, that when anybody would be writing that, you would understand that you'd know what it meant if you wrote, we're interested in research questions that are causal in nature. Okay? But that's a good answer. And here's to sort of get down to bedrock. Here's to boil it down. Perhaps the thing that a researcher is trying to find out is, this happened, what caused it? Or in the reverse order, if this happens, what does it cause? Causality, which is to be distinguished from, please do not, and sometimes this line gets blurred on purpose, and sometimes people just don't know better. Okay? Correlation. Correlation is 2 things happening at the same time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they cause each other. So, for instance, there's a correlation in the number of ice cream cones sold to the number of drownings in swimming pools. In other words, as the number of ice cream cones sold goes up, the number of drownings go up. Those 2 things happen at the same time. Do ice cream cones cause people to drown? No. Okay? Correlation is not causality. It happens that people buy more ice cream cones during the summertime, and in the summertime, they're in swimming pools more often. Okay? correlation is not causality. Or, another way to put it's the old story about rocks. Now, this is a rock that I brought back from, I think I was on the Tanzanian side, around, the Tanzanite mines at the base of Mount Kilimanjaro. Beautiful region. So, yeah, I know I'm not supposed to bring rocks back from mountains that I climb, but, what are you going to do? All right, well, in addition to being from Mount Kilimanjaro, this is a magical rock. It's a special rock because whenever I carry this rock, I just slip it in my coat pocket. And whenever I leave my house carrying this rock, it absolutely keeps tigers away. 100%. I have never seen a tiger any time that I'm carrying this rock. Okay. Yeah, I'm making that up. And not really. Because that's the difference between correlation and causality. Yes, I happen to walk around town in the Midwest with this rock in my pocket, and then yes, I don't happen to see any tigers. But that doesn't mean that this rock has anything to do with keeping tigers away. Okay? So the heart of research is we're trying to find out causality. What causes what, and then, of course, why. And so remember, correlation is not causality. Remember that too in your own thinking. I'm hoping one of the things that you'll come away with from this class is, a deeper perspective, not just on politics and political science and research, but in terms of your thinking, in terms of you go, yeah, okay, that's a compelling story, but where's the evidence? Okay. And oh yeah, those two things did happen at the same time. But where's the evidence that the one is causing the other? All right. You do that and you're going to do well in life. Okay, everybody, that's it. We're going to make it a short one today. All right. Keep doing the great work that you're doing. All right. Coming down to the last week or, week and change for part 1 of your paper. So, best of luck with that. I'll be grading forums 1 through 4. So watch for those probably by the end of the week. Yeah. Okay. When you have it. And, remember that I'm always thinking about you. I'm often praying about you. Have a fantastic rest of the week, and I'll see you on Blackboard. Bye-bye.